Hello class, welcome to the instruction of the pelvic girdle as well as their articulating bones. Here we have a female pelvic girdle. We'll be looking at the male pelvic girdle momentarily and then we'll compare. But before we can do that, we should probably talk about some of the structures that make them what they are. Okay. All right, so the pelvic girdle consists of two coxal bones. We have a right coxal bone here. Remember, it's their right, not ours. And we have a left coxal bone here. Okay, and in between, or they're held together at two joint sites. The anterior-most joint site here is called the pubic symphysis. Pubic symphysis. Okay, and then the posterior joint site is at the sacrum. Okay, it's known as the sacroiliac joint. Okay, sacrum and the iliac joint. Okay, all right. So the bones of the coccyx, they're actually made up of three bones. We have the ilium. So the superior most is known as the ilium. We have the right ilium and the left ilium. Okay. We have the anterior most is the pubic, also known as the pubis or pubic bone. Okay, so we have the pubis or the pubic bone, left and right. And then the inferior most, we have the ischium or ischium.
Ischium.
Ischium. Okay, so those are the three primary bones. Now it's really important to be able to find them if you can orient the anterior and posterior portions of our coxal bones. Okay, I'm going to just separate this for a moment. Okay, look a little bit closer. So this is the right coxal bone. All right, so this is the anterior portion. The anterior portion, you have your pubic in the front, remember, so the pubic forms our anterior portion. Now on the pubic component, you'll notice a fairly roughened area here, okay, and this is going to account for the addition of some surface area which will allow for better contact with the connective tissue that will form the joint. We also see that here with at the joint forming the sacroiliac joint with the sacrum, it's pretty roughened in this area over here. Okay, so again, makes for better contact to form essentially an immovable joint. Okay. All right. Another feature, all right, so let's turn this around. We're going to look at a lateral view. All right, so this is looking at the side. So this would be where our femur connects to the coxal bone. So the head of the leg bone will connect. And this is going to be in the lateral, right? So our legs are on the outside or the sides of our body. All right, and then we continue and we turn around, we have the posterior side. So this is anterior here, this is the pubic bone, and the ilium here. Okay, the back of it forms our posterior side. I'm going to turn it around a little bit. And so the posterior side has this, it almost looks like I guess a wing or something, right? And you have these big old notches here on the posterior side. Okay. So the posterior side is where our sacrum is going to connect here. We have this great old notch over here. And then down below, right, if I flip it over, flip it, and we have the portion, the inferior portion, this is where we sit on. So that sit bone here. Okay, all right. So once you figure out, find all of the lateral, anterior, posterior sides, then you can determine lefts and rights. Okay. All right. So you know that this portion is going to be your your lateral side. This roughened portion here is your medial, but so is this. This is the medial. This roughened portion here is the medial as well as the posterior. So you want to hold that just like that. So you arrange it just like this. And then once you have this in the middle, this is the middle, this is the side, this, we have no other choice, and this being the anterior, this must be the right side. Okay. Well, let me go back and we'll take a look at the left side. We'll do the same thing for the left. Okay. So if I flip this around, okay, so I want to look for that big old notch. If I find that notch, I'm going to flip that over because that's our back. Put that notch there. We've got our rough side is in the middle, so up here on that big portion of the ilium. The roughened side is going to be the medial. Place that there. This roughened part, usually very flat too, because it's going to attach to the other side, is also the middle, so I'm going to arrange it there. This should be the lateral, so our leg will come out over here. So this must be, so this being the front, back, lateral, medial. This must be our left. Okay. All right, now let's look at some particular structures within the coxal bone. Okay. All right, so let's start with our pubic bone here. Okay, I'm going to zoom in, so our pubic bone. This area right here for both pubic, so once you put both pubic bones together, this forms what's called a pubic arch. A pubic arch. Okay, it's going to be pretty important. It's going to help us determine whether it's male or female. Okay. Another important feature of the pubic bone that I would like for you to know is this connecting site known as the pubic symphysis. The pubic symphysis. Okay. All right, and that's it for the pubic bone. That's what I'd like for you to know, those two structures. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and remove that connective tissue. Now for the ischium, okay, or ischium, okay, there are some pretty important pieces here. The part that we sit on, this most inferior part, is known as the ischial tuberosity. The ischial tuberosity. So that's right here. The ischial tuberosity. So this is the posterior side. And then if I move on up, right over here, this is our sciatic notch, the greater sciatic notch. So remember, a notch is anything that sort of juts into, almost like it's been carved out. A notch, the greater sciatic notch. So a little fun fact, we have this nerve that comes out from our spinal cord here, and it'll move through here, and it'll squeeze on through this notch, and then it will innervate. We'll move down our legs and innervate our legs, the muscles of our legs. Some people have problems with their sciatic. They have this condition known as sciatica, in which it becomes pinched from sitting too much. When you sit too much, it changes the way the nerves move within these spaces, and it can get pinched and then inflamed and causes significant pain within the hip and leg. And one of the best cures for that is to stand up more. Okay. All right, so we have our sciatic notch, greater sciatic notch, ischial tuberosity. Okay, and now on to our ilium. Okay, so that's this wing-shaped part of our coxal bone, the ilium. And a couple features I would like for you to know about the ilium. So this part here is known as the iliac crest, the iliac crest. So just like the crest of a wave, right? Like the top of a wave, iliac crest. We put our hands on our iliac crest. And the other part I'd like for you to know is the sacroiliac joint, okay? Which, the name speaks for itself. Sacrum, sacral, ilium, iliac, joint. Right? The joint between those two bones. And that makes up our coxal bone, or at least the specific parts of the coxal bone. Now I'd like for us to learn, just in general, the points at which they come together. Well, before we do that, actually, let's compare our female bone to our male bone. Okay. So our female bone, first of all, tends to have a much wider pubic arch here. In addition, the wings, I call them wings, but the crest tend to be more spread out, so they move more laterally, so they're tucked out. They're not tucked out, but they're spread out laterally. And if I look down, you have this very circular-like opening to allow for baby to pass through. All right, and that is our female. Okay. And this is the male. Okay. The male, that arch is much more narrow. It's more of like a V shape, a very narrow V shape. The wings or the crest of the ilium or the iliac crest tend to be pushed in more. Okay, some additional features that I would like for you to know of the coxal bone, now that our leg has been removed here, we can see the socket for which the head of the femur will articulate. This is known as the acetabulum, okay? And so it will actually, this is the point at which all three of the bone parts will articulate here. So we have the ilium, forms the uppermost part or the superior part. The pubic bone forms the anterior, a little bit of the anterior portion. And then the ischium will form the inferior portion of the acetabulum. And another feature I'd like for you to know of our bone is this structure right here. It's known as the obturator foramen. Obturator foramen. So this is going to allow for muscles to pass through, as well as nervous tissue and blood vessels, just like any foramen does. Okay, but it's a pretty large foramen. And so the obturator foramen is in between our pubic bone and our ischium, or ischial bone. Okay. And that is it for the coxal bones. Okay, now that we've talked about the structures of the coxal bone, I want to focus my attention on the sacrum, as well as the coccyx down here. So we'll have to remove our coxal bones here in order to get a better glimpse. All right, so the sacrum is technically part of our vertebral column. It's one of the lowest portions if we would not include the coccyx. Okay, so our coccyx is the most inferior portion of our vertebral column, okay, our vertebrae. The coccyx is really nothing more than just a vestigial structure left over from our ancestral lines, our primates, the monkeys, and that feature basically de-evolved as primates started doing a lot more walking on land instead of climbing trees. So this structure has since shrunken or become reduced in size in humans and our great apes, our relatives, the great apes. Okay, so that is the coccyx. Let's take a look at this one by itself, just so you can see it all by its lonesome. So if I show something like this to you, you would be able to identify it as the coccyx. Okay, all right. I'm going to remove it now, and we'll take a look at the sacrum. So the sacrum does connect to the rest of the vertebrae. This is the lumbar vertebrae. You can see that connection site here. And if I move it down, our spinal cord will pass through the vertebral foramen here, all the way down to our sacrum. All right, so let's take a closer look at that. So this portion here in the sacrum let's take a closer look at that, this portion here on the sacrum. Okay. Let's do this. Okay. We turn it over like this. This is the anterior. Our nervous tissue will continue to pass through here. So this is known as the dorsal sacral canal. Dorsal sacral canal. All right, so our sacral canal, and so the anterior portion. Let's go back to the posterior. The posterior side, I can tell it's the posterior because it has these dorsal crests here. Okay, dorsal crest. It reminds me of a dragon, the back of a dragon, right? So the dorsal side of a dragon. That's the dorsal side. And then we have these foramen, these dorsal sacral foramen. So as the nerve tissue, the nerves pass into the canal, the sacral canal here, they will leave through each one of these foramen in order to innervate the remaining portions of our abdomen as well as our legs from here. We look at the bottom here, this is known as, this is the continuation of the canal, this is the hiatus, the sacral hiatus, okay, where the nervous tissue passed through. Okay, all right. Put that up. I'm going to take a closer look at this. Okay. So you can get a better glimpse into our foramen. And see how the nerves go. So here's the foramen, it goes right into that canal there. By the way, this is part of the composition of bone here while we've got this open. This is known as compact bone, and then this is the spongy bone. So this would be the site where our red blood cells are produced within the spongy bone, hematopoiesis. Okay. All right, let's see if I can cut away at this a bit more. Oops. So I'm going to really take a look at that. Okay, let's see if we get a better glimpse. Really see how the foramen or the canal will access into the foramen and then it will come back out. Now we also have foramen on the anterior as well, right? So that would be the anterior sacral foramen. So nervous tissue that's going to innervate all of our abdominal and pelvic areas, or well, not abdominal, but pelvic areas, will exit through this side. Okay, so it would exit through this side instead. All right, and that is our sacrum. All right. If you have any further questions, please don't hesitate to ask. And I will be very willing to show you what else I know. Thank you for watching.